Hi, folks. It is a busy week for me, so I apologize for getting this out to you on a Wednesday when I really wanted to get it out to you on Monday. It is the weekly overview for this week, and the week is halfway done, but there are some important uh, transits and aspects that I want to alert you to um, so that and so I was just like, well, let me just go ahead and do this. And sorry about the lighting. I kind of am liking having some sun on my face, so it's a little bit different and it's casting some shadows behind me, but we'll make do. So my apologies again. This is going to be a slightly schedule wise, it's a slightly upside down week for me, and I'm getting adjusted to a couple of changes that I'm sort of making into my life and into my schedule. So I appreciate your patience and I apologize for that. As we look at this week, the big thing that we just need to know is that we're headed towards the Gemini full moon on the 15th. And that is going to be its own separate video that I do in a couple of days. And that full moon is square Neptune. And everything that I have been saying about the month of Sagittarius, the new moon in Sagittarius. And these themes are expanded in greater detail, particularly in the new moon in Sagittarius video and the monthly overview. So what I'm going to say, if that intrigues you, if this is the first of my videos that you're seeing, then I'll place a link to those videos at the end of this video, and you can search for them, or you can look at my list of videos and watch those for greater detail. But the bottom line is, Venus came through Sagittarius middle of October till the end of the first week of November, creating some pathways and some opening and some potential for harmony. Mercury followed in the middle of November. The Sun came in just before Thanksgiving, and Mercury went retrograde on November the 26th. And as far as December is concerned, the new moon in Sagittarius on December the 30th was square Saturn in Pisces. The planets, as they go through Sagittarius, and Mercury is going to do this 3 times, trining Mars, trining the North Node. And the trine with Mars is not every single planet. But I'll get to that. Trining Mars in Leo, trining the North Node in Aries, and then going into trining Chiron, opposing Jupiter, squaring Saturn. Mercury doing this 3 times. Venus has already done it. The Sun just finished trining Chiron yesterday. And then once they're done with that, they're going to square Neptune. And that's where by the time we get to the full moon on the 15th of December, the Sun and the Moon will be there squaring Neptune. Venus has already squared Neptune. Mercury is not going to square Neptune until he goes direct on December the 15th and is getting ready to make his way out of Sagittarius in January. He makes his way out of Sag on January the 11th. So, as I've been saying, actions need to be taken in the sign of Sagittarius in such a way that they can allow Jupiter in Gemini to end a 12-13-year cycle and begin a 12-13-year cycle there. And both Jupiter's transit through Gemini and the personal planets, Sun, Mercury, Venus, the new moon, though not a planet, still is an event, squaring Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, actions need to be taken in the Sagittarius part of the chart that help Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. If there's been a crisis brewing in the Pisces part of the chart since 2012, peaking in 1617, and Saturn's entry into the Pisces part of the chart has either been trying to structure spiritual, philanthropic, creative, artistic goals in the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in your chart, or there's been some sort of theme of fogginess, deception, playing cards close to the chest, things not being entirely clear, things not being entirely in the open. Then Saturn, since March 2023, has been trying to make clear what has been going on in this part of the chart and wanting to put down some boundaries, get to a place of certain agreements and compromises so that the energy leak in the Pisces part of the chart can be stabilized. And if there are matters that need to be addressed responsibly by us, that we do so. And Saturn is going to be in Pisces till Jan-Feb of 26. But especially as we head towards Mercury and Venus going retrograde between Aries and Pisces in March, April, things are sort of cannonballing, snowballing since this Mercury retrograde started on November the 26th, towards that Mercury-Venus retrograde that is going to end, that is going to occur in March and April of 25 between Aries and Pisces and be done by the middle of April of 2025, energetically. But in December, and if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, you may be more decisive about the actions that need to be taken. If you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may right now, while Mercury is retrograde, be in a place of pondering, backtracking, reviewing, going back to the drawing board, paying attention to what is being revealed to you. And then when Mercury goes direct after December the 15th, you may take certain actions between, let's say after Mercury starts to gather some momentum, December 16th, 17th, 18th, all the way to January the 11th, to take actions in the Sagittarius part of the chart that can contribute to stabilizing Saturn, helping to stabilize the energy leaks in the Pisces part of the chart, and Jupiter creating his endings and new beginnings in the Sagittarius, in the Gemini part of the chart, where he's transiting. The full moon in Gemini on the 15th, squaring Neptune, brings a visibility and urgency to this opposition and square. Sun and Mercury in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. A full moon, as this week progresses, we may find that the energetic intensity, what we've got on our plates, what needs to be done. Also, sometimes full moons on the positive side can bring offers and culminations and can bring visibility. It's not an eclipse, but can bring visibility. The thing about this full moon that I've mentioned before that is interesting and intriguing to me is that the rulers of Jupiter and of Gemini and Sagittarius are in each other's houses. Jupiter, the ruler of Sag, is in Gemini. Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is in Sag. And so the dispositors of the chart are in mutual reception. And so something about the full moon, especially insofar as it squares Neptune, and even if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may find that as you're heading to the full moon, that you're in the process of maybe even being in communication or a space of decisiveness. As we head to the full moon, things become energetically a little tricky because Mercury is stationary on the day of the full moon. The ruler of the full moon has just getting ready to go direct. And it could push matters related to Jupiter creating the endings and new beginnings. It could push the matters as I described them, taking action in the Sagittarius part of the chart, processing in the Sagittarius part of the chart, and then taking action if Mercury is direct in your birth chart, in such a way that Jupiter can create the appropriate ending and new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart, and Saturn can stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. That energy, as you head to the 15, moves towards some kind of peak and crescendo. And depending on the situation everyone is dealing with, some of you are going to be in communication about those issues as you head towards that full moon. Some of you may experience something that brings visibility and urgency to tackling, as I said, either taking action in the Sagittarius part of the chart and getting clear on what needs to happen in the Gemini part of the chart so that Saturn can either structure creative, philanthropic, artistic, Neptunian, monastic, spiritual goals in the Pisces part of the chart, or stabilize energy leaks in that part of the chart, making us act responsibly, maturely, wisely in the Pisces part of the chart, not rashly. But as we get to full moons are, of course, as you know, notorious for rashness. And what is important with a full moon and the visibility that it will bring to the Gemini part of the chart for the 48 hours before and the 24 hours later is to really pay attention emotionally and intuitively to what is coming up for you. If you're on the receiving end of the tantrum, or if you're throwing a tantrum, or if you're feeling like throwing a tantrum but decide not to, can be wise. What is important with a full moon is to pay attention to emotional and intuitive truths that may have been suppressed, that are trying to bubble up. With a full moon, I always say the wave crashes to the shore, but more importantly, the pot of milk comes to a boil. And so whether you're on the receiving end of a tantrum or delivering a tantrum or being full moony in some way, hopefully it means a certain amount of visibility, and there's a positive connotation to this full moon as well. You are paying attention to what emotional bubble is bursting and what truths are being revealed. How do you really feel about something? What are you really finding out about something? And it may have to do with this sense of deception in the Pisces part of the chart that has been a theme since 2012 and peaked in 2016-17. That Saturn is now trying to stabilize. You may get some kind of irrefutable proof that certain actions need to be taken. There might be even a kind of beauty to Mercury being stationary with this full moon, insofar as people who have Mercury retrograde may feel by the time that they're getting to the full moon that they have taken the actions that they feel they need to take and done what they feel they need to do in order to get things to a particular point or a particular place. That they have made their decisions that they're going to roll out over the next 3 months. And people who have Mercury direct in their birth chart may feel like, I've done all the reviewing and paying attention to and incorporating that I need to do, and based on going back to the drawing board and processing what I now know, however disappointing it might be, then after December the 16th, 17th, 18th, as Mercury starts to move direct and gather some speed, a little speed, I can start to take the actions that I want to take in the Sagittarius part of the chart through January the 11th. Because Mercury direct is going to make those aspects again. Squaring Saturn, opposing Jupiter, trining Chiron. And the trine to Chiron and the healing that it is trying to provide is just an enormous help with this process. Just as with the Mars retrograde that is occurring, the fact that Mars gets to trine Saturn and trine Neptune and trine the node, even though Mars is going to oppose Pluto, and we have Venus opposing Mars tomorrow. I'll come to the transits for this week in a second. Overall, all of this change and turmoil that we're now in, the energy is starting to move to a different place. It's like whatever energy has been in place since March, April of 23 till November 25th, 26th of this year is now done. And we are moving to a new desired place. And how things configure, even if they configure in a way that is disappointing, but they don't have to be. Just tap into that Saturnian, mature, wise, non-reactive, seeing things as they are, acting responsibly for your best interest. And that is not the same as feeling like you're betraying yourself. But it's also seeing what can be done to minimize conflict and turmoil so everyone can move forward. And where those balances need to be struck. What are you really here to do, and what are you getting constantly sidetracked by? And does it have something to do with the Pisces part of your chart? And what can you do to stabilize things? And somewhere, the house occupied by Sagittarius in your chart and how it links up to the house occupied by Gemini and Pisces is critically important in December. And the trine to Chiron brings you back to yourself in the middle of all these earthly things that you're trying to manage and navigate. As far as this week is concerned, December the 9th, a couple of days ago, Venus trined the south node. Venus in Aquarius trined the south node. Yesterday, the 10th, the Sun trined Chiron. Tomorrow, the 12th, Venus opposes Mars. This to me is the most intriguing aspect of this week. So Venus makes two aspects this week already, trining the south node in Libra from Aquarius. Venus is in Aquarius. And Venus in Aquarius opposing Mars, a retrograde Mars now, in Leo tomorrow. On the 14th, the day before the new moon, a retrograde Mercury trines a retrograde Mars. This is really intriguing. And then the next day, on the 15th, Mercury goes direct or stationary on that day, and we have the Gemini full moon, which will have its own video. And I've already given you a sense of the Gemini full moon at this point in time. Starting next week, after the full moon, the energy shifts. After the full moon, the energy shifts. The sun is going to get ready to head into Capricorn December the 21st. We have a Venus-Jupiter trine, that's lovely, on December the 20th. We're still going to be feeling the impact of that full moon because the sun squares Neptune. But the intensity that has been mounting in the Sagittarius part of the chart moves more into execution phase after this full moon in Gemini. As I said, some of you, even if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, may feel like you need to communicate something as you head to this full moon. Okay. Venus in Aquarius, wherever Venus goes, she asks the question, what needs to be done to bring this part of the chart, the house occupied by Aquarius, into alignment with where you go and what you value? And Venus also asks the question, or provides opportunities for a certain amount of harmony, relationship building, financial opportunities, job opportunities. She sprinkles luck and grace and ease and kind of greases the wheels wherever she goes. Now, Venus can make us passive and not quite as guarded as we should be. Mars, of course, provides that I'm going to go hunt and gather and pursue the goals and bring things into alignment, actually take the action to bring things into alignment. And I am going to protect Venus and what I value. So on her own, what's nice is that Venus can bring or build a bridge. But then right now, because Venus is further ahead than the personal planets, it's not until the personal planets get involved and start to move into Aquarius, which is not going to happen until the end of January. Because the Sun and Mercury still need to go through Capricorn. Venus is that far ahead of them right now. She's getting ready to go retrograde, so she's going to go further and further and further ahead, right into Pisces, right into Aries, and then it's too far from the sun, and she's going to go retrograde and come back and meet up with the sun, and then go behind the sun. And then, Venus is going to do, Mercury does this around the sun. Venus does this around the sun. And from that place, trining the south node, as I mentioned to you, the week before December the 2nd, week before, week after, all the way to December the 9th, could have brought either eclipsy events in your life or brought to the forefront matters related to the south node solar eclipse in Libra on October the 2nd. What is it that needs to be released? Some of you will continue this release process as you move towards the full moon in Libra in April, I think, of next year. But the week before, after December 2nd, could have kind of knocked on your door and said, we're here again. Venus trying the south node does not bother me that much, or I don't think she's that important. The sun trining Chiron yesterday is important because I think that as you're pondering what's going on in the Sagittarius part of the chart, it just especially if it's something heavy, it gives you that boost to say, you know what, you can get back in touch with your core. You can come back to an empowered place and take action from there. And as I said, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, you might be in action already. You might be more decisive. You might be getting clear. You might be getting things to a place where once Mercury goes direct, you're going to roll things out based on that decisiveness. If you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may be pondering, learning, observing the reality checks that Mercury is bringing towards you. And then you may get into communication or triage mode after Mercury goes direct. And somewhere, all of this, it's really interesting as we head into this weekend, as we look at the most important thing apart from the Gemini full moon happening this week is Venus in Aquarius opposes Mars and Jupiter, and Mercury in Sagittarius lines up to trine Mars in Leo. I said Mars and Jupiter. Mercury is retrograde. My planets and my tongue is moving in ways that... So Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Leo, opposition tomorrow. And as you head to the 14th, Mercury retrograde trining Mars. Mercury trined Mars when he first came into Sagittarius. He's gone retrograde. And he's going to trine Mars a second time. But he's not going to trine Mars a third time after he goes direct because Mars is going retrograde. So they're going to trine each other and go separate. So somewhere, either actions being taken or decisiveness on the part of Mercury retrograde folks, or observing, pondering, going back to the drawing board when it comes to Mercury direct folks. Again, just like the sun touched base with Chiron yesterday, Mercury will touch base with Mars and say, it's okay. There are battle lines here. There's something in the Sagittarius part of the chart that's critically important to manage. Get in touch with your vitality, your core, your sense of self-empowerment, and act from there. Venus opposing Mars brings us to part, if you find that you're involved in some sort of broil with someone, whether it is overt or introvert, and you're pondering it, just keep in mind that there's an element with Mars retrograde now, and with Venus opposing a retrograde Mars, and Mercury retrograde trining Mars retrograde, there is an air of passive aggressiveness in the air. There is an air of going behind the scenes. There is an air of you could be challenged by the fact that someone is either, depending on where Aquarius sits in your chart, either you could be presenting a sweet front to somebody who you might feel is an adversary in a particular matter. You could be extending a hand. You could be being passive. You could be being conciliatory. And the other person may not play ball, but rather than deal with the matter overtly, may be in observation mode. It could be reversed, depending on where Aquarius and Leo sit in your chart. It could be that somebody else is all of a sudden, or to some extent, being, let's be friends. Aren't I sweet? And it's a nice energy to deal with, as opposed to, I'm going to fight you. I mean, you're going to deal with whatever it is that's going to Venus is doing in Aquarius by the time you get to the end of January and into February anyway. So you're going to have to contend with it. But right now, what you might be getting is, can we find a way to work this out? Or it's really not as bad as you think it is. And if you have Mars in a house that stands for you, you might be in a place going, how am I going to respond? Am I going to budge? Am I not going to budge? What am I protecting? Where am I drawing my boundaries? What are my goals? And it's an important question because the Mars retrograde is not a transit to scoff at. Remember, there are 3 gates of activity that we're going to pass through as we head towards the middle to the end of April to end something significant energetically so that we can land in the new between middle to end of April to the end of the first week of June. The new is symbolized by either the North Node eclipses in Aries and the Aries part of your chart and what that stands for and how you're leaning into it, either that or some combination of that and the after effects of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus on April the 20th of this year, and Jupiter creating the ending and new beginning in Gemini till June the 8th of this year, of next year, from May the 25th of this year. So either where we're headed is symbolized by the Aries North Node eclipses, or some combination of what is expansive in the Aries, Taurus, and the Gemini part of our chart, moving us forward to the new. What we are trying to balance and manage so it doesn't sabotage things is the Pisces part of the chart. But until we get to the middle to the end of April, we have to bring the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment, which is kind of a tightrope walk right now with Mercury retrograde going on and the opposition to Jupiter and the squares to Saturn and Neptune. We have to honor Mars retrograde, which is being triggered by the opposition to Venus, but also the trine from a retrograde Mercury, saying, come on, Mars. Don't lose sight of what Mars retrograde is. It could be that with Mars retrograde, you may reconsider what it is, how it is that with Mars retrograde, sometimes it is a going back and re-evaluating and rechecking this building that I'm working toward, been working towards building over the past 2 years. Is that really the building I want to build? Are these the plans I want to follow? Are these the goals? Is this the end game? What is the end game that I am pursuing? And how am I going about pursuing it? And so Mars retrograde is an opportunity to say, if I have been on some sort of a track and it's been moving forward for the past 2 years, do I need to backtrack when it comes to understanding what my end goal is, my vision is, what it is that I'm trying to achieve, and how I am trying to achieve it? If I felt like there's some sort of conflict here that needs to be managed and avoided, am I backtracking and saying, well, do I need to be in this much of conflict mode? If I've been too passive, am I thinking, do I need to be in more assertive mode? What am I building? As I said with Mars retrograde, it's very much this idea that you have a plan and you're building towards it, or you're doing some renovations and Mars goes retrograde and something happens and you and the construction people realize, yeah, no, we need to pause. This may not be exactly what we want to build, and this may not be exactly how we want to go about it. Something has come up. So if Mars is pursuit of our desires and setting boundaries, retrograde Mars may say, what is the right way to bring resolution to this crisis in Pisces, considering that Mars is going to trine Saturn and Neptune 3 times as part of his retrograde. And this opposition to Venus and this trine from Mercury may be the first touch points for a retrograde Mars to go, I'm in observation mode. You're being really nice and really sweet. Can I trust it? What does it mean? Is it useful to me? Is it helpful to me? Can I lay down my guard? Can we build something here that can have a spirit of Venus opposition Mars, compromise? And through that process, and with the trine from Mercury retrograde, do I question, and is this questioning really going to help me Bring some stability. At the end of the day, Mars is trying to close something significant out in the Cancer part of the chart, your chart, so that he can land into the Leo part of the chart with greater confidence of certain energies being behind you by the middle to the end of April of 2025. Mars goes retrograde on February the 26th. So till February 26th, it is, what do I want? What am I building? How am I going about it? Do I need to pull back? Do I need to reassess? It's a little bit like with Mars, because he has this general energy. If there is a goal to be achieved, or if there's a battle that needs to be fought, and if there's been a plan of action in place, it's a little bit like saying, no, 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 no. Let's pull out the maps again. Let's survey the terrain again. If I was thinking the cavalry would go here, and this would happen here, and this would happen like this, and this would happen like this, I want to, based on what I know right now, I want to head back. And matters related to the Cancer part of the chart are not complete yet, so that you can really operate in the Leo part of the chart with greater confidence. And when Mars came into Leo in November and was direct there, you may have felt in November that you were able to be assertive on certain things. But now with Mars retrograde in Leo and heading back into Cancer in January, there's a and with Venus opposing Mars from Aquarius, there may be the potential for a certain harmony coming either from you, if you have Aquarius in the first or the second or the third house, for example, or from the other party. If the other party, if you have especially something like Aquarius in your 7th house or your 8th house, but it could be the 5th house, it could be, whatever those houses stand for, the sweetness could be coming from there, and you may be in a place where you're just like, what does this mean? And is it something that I can trust and take advantage of and have it work to our mutual benefit? Or not? Is there some substance behind it? Venus going over Sagittarius between the middle of October to the end of the first week of November may have acted as a bit of a drawbridge in the Sagittarius part of the chart, but that doesn't mean that harmony prevails. With the Sun and the new moon square Saturn on November the 30th and Mercury being retrograde between November the 26th to December the 15th, there's enough going on to kind of pick up the pieces and try and analyze and try and figure out what is really going on in the Sagittarius part of the chart and how you're going to bring it in alignment. But generally speaking, this week has a certain amount of fire to it that it's like a 50-50 thing. The Sun trining Chiron and Mercury retrograde trining Mars. In the fire signs, the Sun in Sag, Mercury retrograde in Sag, Mars in Leo, Chiron in Aries, is providing, it could be more internal, but is providing you with a strong internal core of operating from an empowered place. Whether the operation and the actions are overt, or currently with a retrograde Mercury and a retrograde Mars, you are in processing, observing mode, is an open question. Once Mercury goes direct after December 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, things will start to move forward again in the Sagittarius part of the chart. Once Mars is direct after the 24th of February, things will start to move forward through Cancer, and Mars will enter Leo by the middle of April of next year. And after these two retrogrades go direct, Mercury direct December 15th, Mars direct February 24th, we head right into Venus and Mercury going retrograde. And this is going to be where the rubber hits the road. Everything is pointing to Venus and Mercury going retrograde between Aries and Pisces. By the middle to the end of the first week of April through the end of the first week of June, something in the Pisces part of the chart needs to get to a point of further stabilization so that you can land in the Aries part of the chart with greater confidence. Something in the water signs, particularly Cancer and Pisces, as you're heading to the middle of April, needs to be wrapped up so that you can start to operate from the fire sign part of the chart, Leo and Aries, in a more decisive, empowered place, knowing that certain prior energies have been put to bed. how you choose to do it and whether there's going to be an energy leak or not, or whether there's going to be a compromise or not, or things move in everyone's favor or not, or whether they're happy or they're sad, are less the question. What it's really heading to is the potential for some kind of closure so you can move forward. And matters in the Sagittarius part of the chart are in the mix. And Jupiter being able to create the endings and new beginnings is in the mix, especially because Jupiter is moving towards squaring Saturn by December the 24th. So when we look at this week's energies, it's just continuing to move us forward in that direction. 50% of the energies, as far as I'm concerned, give you firepower. The other 50%, with the full moon squaring Neptune on the day that Mercury is stationary. If it isn't clear to you what you're contending with in the Sagittarius part of the chart and how it could challenge you, it will become clear to you as you head towards this full moon. The full moon is not without other benefits, as I said, visibility and maybe some offers or maybe some resolutions or whatever it is. But you may get to a place as you head to the full moon where by the time you get to the full moon, battle lines are drawn. And those people who have Mercury retrograde in their charts related to what you're trying to stabilize and what you're trying to bring into alignment in the Sagittarius part of your chart. Those who have Mercury retrograde in their birth chart will start to implement. Those who have Mercury direct in their birth chart will also start to implement, but the Mercury retrograde people will use the Mercury retrograde time period for decisiveness. The Mercury direct people will use the Mercury retrograde period for observation, pondering, going back to the drawing board. My hope is that with Mars trining Saturn and Neptune 2 more times, retrograde and direct, with Venus and Mercury being retrograde between Pisces and Aries in March, April, my hope is that things lead to the things that we're trying to put to bed and put behind us, that there is as comfortable an ending and a compromise as possible through this process. Certainly, we have enough aspects trying to help us along the way. Okay? That is what I would say about the energy of this week. Whether things are inverted for you or introverted for you or extroverted, or whether you are implementing or whether you're processing, that's going to be an individual thing for each of you. By the way, this is the last week till December 15th is when I'm offering my $50 30-minute single topic reading. So if there's a single topic that you want to consult with me on for 30 to 40 minutes, I'm offering those for $50. You can use my email address below to get in touch with me by December the 15th. We don't have to schedule the appointment by December 15th. I just need to hear from you by then and we can set it up. Now, I'll just leave it at that. Also, regular readings are available. If you want to give readings as holiday gifts, you can use my email address below to inquire about that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button, there's a bell icon. Hover over it, wiggly bell on top. Click on that. You'll be notified when I do new videos. Thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to the channel. Comment if you feel so inclined, or like the video. Those are free ways to support the channel. It gives the video greater circulation on YouTube. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you found this helpful. I hope it resonates a little bit. If you're dealing, you're gonna have to decide where you're feeling really firm and somewhat fiery about something, and Mars-like about something, protecting boundaries. You're gonna have to decide how you're gonna tackle that Venus energy, so that if you've been in a place of conflict over something and what you're getting is Venusian, you're going to have to determine where you stand your ground, what you feel comfortable with, where you're going to draw the line. If someone is being passive all of a sudden, if someone is being passive aggressive, if someone is being outright love bombing. You're going to have to determine, and this could have been going on because it's not about the date when things happen, it's as you head towards it. So this could be energy that's been playing out over the past week, the past 10 days or so, because Venus opposes Mars tomorrow. And remember that the faster moving planet when it comes to an opposition is being stopped by the slower moving planet, in this case Mars, to get the slower moving. The faster moving planet has to do something to serve the slow moving planet. That's one way to try and think of this as well. Mars is retrograde. So where you thought you might be taking an overt or an assertive stance on something, with Venus opposing Mars, you may decide that you're reconsidering your battle plans and see how you can introduce an element of cordiality or sweetness into the proceedings. Venus going through Aquarius, I've already talked about this in the monthly December video. Venus going through Aquarius, important aspect, conjunction to Pluto already made, opposing Mars, getting ready to trine Jupiter. And then the Sun, Mercury will pick this up at the end of January onwards. All right, folks, I will leave it at this, and I will be back in touch. I'm either going to do the full moon in Gemini video next, or I might do something, just a quick refresher on Mars retrograde. I have 3 videos already out there on Mars direct retrograde, and Mars trining Saturn, and Mars opposing Pluto, and all that good stuff. The energies are just going to continue to escalate as we head towards the middle to the end of April. So just know that. And we are no longer energetically in the place where we've been since March, April 23 to November 24. All right. Talk to you guys soon.